They say that no story lives on unless someone wants to listen. And that is why the next session is the art of storytelling and branding for artists. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bapi Bit. With 28 years and many more successful brands, Mr. Bit has won many international and national awards like the Cannes, One Show London, Advertising Awards Association of India, Effective Information Awards, and many more. Bapi has come a long way from being a visualizer, an executive creative director, and now an advertising filmmaker. Hailing from the world of advertising, telling stories in half a minute and selling dreams is Bapi's occupation. Started his career with Ogilvy and Mather in 1992, he has worked in countries like Oman, Dubai, Singapore, Kenya, and South Africa with many advertising firms. Bapi is a director working for multiple production houses and multiple brands. He has formed his own production, Hot Shop Motherboard Films, in the year 2017. Motherboard Films specializes in ideas that push the envelope and detailing that makes the idea stand apart. As a producer-director, he has worked on many brands including McDonald's, Cadbury's Eclairs, Sony Mix, Taj London, and the list goes on and on. Bapi was assigned the prestigious cervical cancer awareness campaign Faces of Hope 2020 by the American Cancer Society and Tourism Oman, and his film for Oman Tourism was the curtain raiser for the International Tourism Board 2019 and Berlin. This person on our panel is Mr. Hasnain Waris. Brands to Brum is how he likes to phrase his story. 15 years of working in the glitzy and creative world of advertising and searching for fulfillment beyond creative kicks. He finally managed to find himself while working on the biography of his guru, Hazrat Roshan Shah Parsi. His spiritual journey started when his mother placed him in the lap of his guru and requested him to bless him with a name. He grew up like any other child in a metropolitan city. The only difference being he was comfortable in a mosque as he was in the satsang. In the late 80s and early 90s, he got many opportunities to spend some memorable summer vacation in his guru's presence. Rest, as they say, is history. In 2019, he decided to quit his job full-time and dedicate the second innings of his life towards the development of people and spreading message of conscious living. He conducts talks, organizes workshops and retreats to help people gain clarity about their true self and give them a chance to experience the real transformative power of Sufism. He is a certified spiritual and life coach, NLP, EFT, L&D professional, and helps corporates as a performance consultant and individuals as a personal coach. The next of my panelists is Mr. Suresh Eriot. Suresh graduated from the prestigious National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, specializing in communication design, super specializing in animation film design in 1997. Since then, he has been relentlessly working in the field of animation and film design. In the difficult phase of development of animation genre within its borders in the early days, Eriot established famous House of Animation in 1998. It was this landmark venture through which he was able to realize numerous animated ads, short films, music videos, and many other firsts, which brought not only national and international recognition but also changed the way people perceived animation in India. Optimizing the learning and experience of 11 years from there, he founded Studio Geeksaurus in partnership with his wife Nilima Eriot since 2009. The studio deals with production of films in a media-agnostic manner, indulging into cinema, television, web, and digital platforms. Suresh has made over 400 films, which allowed him to receive numerous awards, including the prestigious Annecy Festival Crystal in 2015, which was a first for India.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, because I don't know at what time zone you're going to be in watching this, but welcome to WLOC, world's largest online creativity event. And today we have an exceptional lineup of speakers and guests in our panel. And we're going to be talking about the art of storytelling and the role branding plays in building your brand as an artist. So if you're a creative person, if you're an artist, you're an illustrator or you're a motion designer, whatever you are, you're a creative being, this talk is going to be a great source of learnings, nuggets, and inspirational stuff that you can take away as learnings and apply them to your day-to-day to become a better storyteller and get better work and projects moving forward. Okay, so my name is Paul, by the way. I am a creative director. I am coming in live from Toronto today, and I'm gonna hand it over to the panelists to go one by one and kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are, their story, and what they currently do. And then we'll get into some questions and we'll get into some practical advice, and we'll summarize with some conclusions, some learnings, and we're gonna wrap it up in about 1 hour, okay? So I'm gonna actually start off with Mr. Suresh, and I'm gonna head it off to him, and he can kind of give us his introduction. And off to you, Suresh.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Suresh Ariat. I am a design graduate from NID. I finished, specialized in communication design, super specialized in animation, film, and design. I set up Studio Ixoras in 2009. Before that, I set up another company called Famous House of Animation way back in 1998. So overall, last 23 years, I've been working in Mumbai with making films. Primarily animation. We have an animation studio which doubles up also as a design studio. We work with multiple mediums in a medium agnostic way, keeping design-centric solutions for films. So in our portfolio, we have over 400 films in terms of what we've been directing and producing since the last 20 years. Most of it are advertisement films, short films. There are music videos. There are right now we are creating content mostly in short film and feature film. Also developing some series in animation, which were targeted at multiple platforms that have opened up many avenues today. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited because especially as a filmmaker, the basis of everything that you do is embedded in storytelling. So I'm really keen to learn, how you craft those stories and how you take people on that journey. So I'm gonna hand it off to now Hasnain Varis. Is that correct? If I've got the name pronunciation right there. But over to you. Over to you. Go ahead. You can kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what your journey's been and what you do.
So, hello, friends. My name is Hasnain Varis. That's the right pronunciation. And I'm a hardcore marketing communication chap. I've worked with houses like Publicis Worldwide, Mudra Mumbai, Everest Brand Solutions. There are a few agencies that I have served as a art director, creative director. So once I've been there, done that, I'm, right now working with an NGO as their communication consultant. So I head their creative department or communication department. And apart from that, I have a spiritual side to myself. So I'm a spiritual coach, and I conduct retreats and workshops and help people realize their higher meaning in life. So this is my long story cut short.
Right. That's amazing. That's funny that you worked at Everest Brand Solutions. I worked with Rahul Johari at Everest. I don't know if he was around when you worked at Everest, but I worked with Rahul Johri when he was at Pickle, and I think he was at Everest after that.
Okay, so yeah. See,
Colliding
it's
worlds.
a small world, Paul. Rahul came after I left Everest, and before that we had a NCD, which was like in place of Rahul only. That was Padma Kumar Narasimhamurthy, Paddy. So he was my boss.
Right. Yeah. Small world. You know, the moment you get into advertising, marketing, it's like the network, the family becomes smaller and smaller.
True.
All right. I'm actually looking forward to hearing some insights into the spiritual aspects of, that work-life balance for creatives, especially. And okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Bapi Bit, if that's correct. He can kind of tell us a little bit about himself, his story, Paul, and go for it.
I'm saying that the world can't get smaller than this. I work with Rahul.
Oh my
I work with
God.
Rahul with Everest. And when Rahul left Everest and he joined, I think he is currently working for
Rediffusion.
Rediffusion, yeah. So I moved along with him. And then, So, so my name is Bapi Bit. I did my graduation from Delhi College of Art. That's where I learned my basics. And then I joined advertising. I joined Ogilvy way back. Then I worked in countries like Singapore, Dubai, Oman, Johannesburg. Came back to Dubai. And then came to the Mecca of advertising in India and Mumbai in the year 2001. And then worked in different agencies then, at least for the next 10 years. Then I quit and I started directing advertising and short films. And that's what I do at this point of time. Besides, by profession, I'm a commercial storyteller, which is I'm an advertising storyteller. And by interest, I run an online Instagram site called Stay Home Dad, where I and my two boys, who are 10-year-old twins, we all narrate story, which is folk tales from around the world, twice every week. With the assistance of these boys, I do art, I do origami, and generally I utilize my lockdown by narrating stories from around the globe twice every week. That's what I do.
Right. Wow, that's fantastic. In fact, some of the lessons that you're giving your kids early on in in building that skill for storytelling, I think that's going to have an exponential impact on their life.
I hope so.
By the way, I think you brought up a really interesting topic, and we don't want to ignore the fact that we are in a pandemic, and globally, people watching, they're going to be sitting at home, and so I would love to have a quick 1-minute version of how you're kind of coping through the pandemic, starting with Suresh.
So I think this is what is happening. Zoom. Everywhere. This is the most common thing. I feel good, in fact, sharing, our experiences and whatever knowledge with a lot more people than ever before. I think people have so much access to you now, much more easier than earlier, when they had to look up what sort of flights, what sort of days they need to block in our calendar. So the accessibility has become very easy, and I think because of that, a lot of institutes, I think it's also our responsibility to keep them charged. A lot of agencies, a lot of people want these talks, and so that's something that I've been doing. I think in a week, almost two sessions of something or the other I'm doing. So
wow,
this is something that is a new way of life during this lockdown times. Otherwise, work is going on, and it gave us a lot of time to introspect and come up with look at our own work in a very different perspective. I've also realized that how much ever we thought, we have a larger studio in Mumbai, and people used to come here and work, but people are much more effectively contributing to work nowadays, and without any pressure. We don't have, like agencies, we don't have daily meetings or something. We are making films, and we are not taking up any shoot-based films now because of the situation, and I personally don't want to take risks. So we are doing a lot more animation films, and especially for WHO and a lot of responsible agencies globally. And that has been keeping us going, and people have been doing really, really fantastic work. I've realized that maybe this is a better way to work. For people are at home, they are comfortable, they don't need to travel from wherever they are to in Mumbai. Traveling is a huge problem. So people are based in various parts of the country, and we are doing films. In between, I also traveled to Kerala by road for a couple of months. I was staying there, and I could we could spend some time with parents, my old parents. So it
Right.
overall it has been I mean, and there have been many stories that I have developed during this time, and a lot more collaborative efforts have started up, which was not the case because you're always tied up with the mundane, probably, every day. So that has been one of the biggest differences. We've been able to develop and brush up, and a lot of projects that we kept on hold earlier. Now that we have time, we could actually take them out and then give them shape. So it has been, I think, in one way, blessing in disguise. I lost some 12, 13 kilos. I do yoga every day. I mean, which I used to only tell the others to do, but now I'm doing it myself. So, which is great.
Right.
Yeah. So lot of goods, lot of positive.
Fantastic. That's some great stuff. And what about Hasnain? How have you been coping with the pandemic and staying at home? And
Yeah, we are like opening up it now. Like I go twice a day. Today was my working day at office. So, but rest of the days we are working from home only. So as Suresh mentioned, like it is, giving us opportunity to explore, that you can work more efficiently, working from home. Now that we have got used to it, earlier, like there were some disturbances because there is no line, dividing the work or personal space. But yes, now we have got little used to it, like 6 months, 7 months down the line.
yeah,
So that is one thing. But on work front, like because I'm working with the NGO, we had to do some serious fundraising efforts because we give scholarships to underprivileged girls, and we run some 17 orphanages. So we had to do some massive fundraising because there are some regulations in place now, which we can't look for foreign funds and all that. So there were some challenges for us from NGO point of view. But yes, as a communication person, I would say that yes, more workshops, more online webinars, and it's like we have some way discovered a new balance within this pandemic situation. So yes, life is you can say resetting itself, and we are trying to find a new balance and new normal to adjust with.
right, right. Yeah, I think what I'm gonna actually let Bapi kind of wrap up in terms of his experiences in the pandemic, and then I would love to later in the talk circle back in terms of how even when working remotely, we can still do storytelling, and how do we actually execute great stories even when we're working from home and we're working on projects. How do we still get that point across, even if it means to a client or to potentially when creating a short film. And I think how Suresh kind of outlined that they're kind of doing more animation work, because I'm guessing, or I'm assuming, that a lot of the actual in-person live shoots are not happening as much. So yeah, so I'm going to let Bapi kind of tell us a little bit about his experience working through this pandemic and how it's going for him.
So I started my own production house in the year 2017. And since then, I've been doing a lot of international work. I've been doing a lot of tourism work for, let's say, the Indonesia, Thailand, Oman, a little bit work for Dubai, Europe. So that had kept me traveling a lot. And as I told you, that I've got 2 10-year-olds at home. And at that point of time, they were 7. I hardly had any time to interact with them. I think one of the best things which has happened to me personally is that my art of storytelling, which somehow or the other affects my business of storytelling and advertising. I could work that a lot thanks to my boys. I learned a lot from them. So overall, my pandemic has been thankfully dedicated to my boys, and I relearned the entire art of crafting stories through various fairy tales and folklores that I say every week.
Right.
As far as my profession is concerned, it has been a stall, at least for the first 5 to 6 months. And
Right.
I tried doing a little bit of work through Zoom, but I'll be very honest that it is way below the level of satisfaction that I would otherwise got. So yeah, but at least for the past 1 month, things have become 1.5 months. Things have become slightly better. I'm working again. The flip side is that I get to spend a little bit less amount of time with the boys. But yeah, so that's a balancing act which I've been doing, at least for the past 1.5 months.
Right. Right. Okay. So I guess we all have some sort of overlapping experiences in terms of how we're best utilizing this time. So what I'm going to do is just jump right into it because I want to keep cognizant that we have the next, let's say, about 30 minutes left, 40 minutes to cover the different topics. So I'm going to go right into from the art of storytelling, like what is the role of storytelling and how has it evolved? Because in the context of digital and how we are all kind of consuming TikTok, to traditionally you would have a television commercial. So how has the role of storytelling changed? And because you guys are veterans and you've seen it evolve from, these 15-second commercials to now people are being able to consume content across multi-platforms. So I would love for Mr. Suresh to kind of kick it off, and then we'll go to Bapi and then Hasnain. Mr. Suresh, your mic is muted.
Yeah. When Jan is talking about storytelling and advertisement, so there's a lot of evolution that's going on because in India, as you know, the people are still coping with this digital intervention. So people are figuring out how best they can utilize this medium, to best of their efficiencies. So it's not. I don't think it is just straight away replacing a screen. It has its own differences which people are still finding out, and how one can. The advantage here is that you with direct digital marketing, you can direct one person and single out that person and address and make that person become your consumer, and that is something that is possible now rather than the wide net that they used to launch with TV. Where some people will cling on to it and maybe become consumers. Here there's a lot of persuasion that is happening. So there are goods and bad. A lot of advertising is pretty result oriented. When you look at storytelling, they become pretty number oriented. That it's pretty persuasive. You speak about something like the other day I was talking about Maldives, and then I get an ad about going to Maldives, and then I get another thing, and I go to Instagram, I see something about snorkeling equipment, and then I get the algorithms are working in a very, very different fashion, and that is something that the the traditional advertising fraternity is like really kind of trying to catch up and understand what the heck is going on. How do we find relevance in that sense? We have been doing a few films directly with clients. We are discussing various different technologies, how people are using AI and augmented realities and stuff, how they can use that in films. So that's also a very interesting explorations people are doing. As far as storytelling is concerned, I think a lot of brands are also getting interested in associating with content. Like, because that is that is like really big. People are consuming, especially during these times. People have been consuming content like anything, and there is a dearth of content that people are feeling. In terms of advertising films, I haven't seen too much of a like, I haven't seen radical films in these times which have taken me by surprise or something. That how did they do that, sort of a thing. And in terms of storytelling, they are pretty much following the traditional way of storytelling, which like, especially in some formats, I have been approached by people to change the format entirely, like shoot the film vertically. I mean, and people are saying that, how vertical format is going to be so much relevant, like TikTok and all those things are great examples that how one can use vertical format to tell stories. It requires a complete shift of thinking from filmmakers who have been always looking at the widest screen and widest possible thing, and to come to this this format. So that is some sort of an exercise people are doing to cope with it. But yet, I haven't seen it this format kind of getting adapted so well that you will get authentic usage of this format to evolve some sort of new way of filmmaking is something that I haven't seen yet. While everybody's trying to shoot it and do it in a very traditional way and kind of put it in that format, rather, that's what one is seeing. So I haven't seen anything that took me by surprise in this last 5-6 months. If you're talking about just these times, I haven't seen anything that. Of course, in the beginning, people were creating films using the Zoom language that people were getting eloquent by. Screen. Every actor was keeping shooting themselves and kind of editing out films, which really looked makeshift to me. It was not looking like a format to stay. It was very, very makeshift. And after a while, I think a month and a half down the line, that kind of vanished. Now people are getting back to the traditional mode of shooting. I'm not really seeing really great, storytelling differences. I mean, one film that I remember which kind of caught big discussions was the Tanishq commercial. In that also, that became big controversy in India, which was pulled out, etc. I don't know whether you've seen that. It became a huge issue. But even there, even though it was a topic that was selected very interesting, I mean, filmmaking technically, I'm talking about this pretty mundane way of taking filming. I haven't seen any great drastic differences because of the digital intervention yet. I think people are still coping with it, is what I'm guessing. I'm sure. I don't know what's the situation abroad. I mean, how is it in Canada and stuff? Can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Well, yeah.
That's a really good segue, because some of the things that you've outlined is that storytelling at its core has been relatively, the approach has been the same, but what's changed is the way we kind of approach the production aspect of it. Is that, from, cutting a video, in 16:9 or 16:10 widescreen versus, you're going 10:16. So that's one of the things that you outlined. And in terms of the uniqueness of stories coming out of, let's say, specifically the pandemic, you haven't seen anything unique. It's people are still relying on storytelling in a more traditional sense of, a beginning, middle, and an end,
Absolutely.
and take people in. But the format of how we execute those is slightly changing. I would love to know Bapi's experience, because he's kind of worked in many different global contexts,
Yeah.
and what his perspective is and how he's seeing it, not only just in India, but how has kind of storytelling evolved over, as your creative career has gone, and where it is now, what you're seeing.
Well, I'll be, my take actually in storytelling is that since the time sapiens have become civilized, nothing has been built from a simple thing like a brand to, if you get deeper into that, as brands have become a part of our lives and turn into mythological heroes to whatever, nothing has worked. Nothing has turned itself into a brand until and unless there is a story behind it. Okay.
That's brilliant words. Yeah.
I'm saying it's as simple as if you just say a brand like Nike, just do it. That particular statement of Nike, just do it, can come up with multiple versions, and every version will have a story attached to that. And every story can be formulated as a piece of commercial or as a piece of interactive piece of communication from, by any agency.
Right.
I personally believe that when you are born, the first thing that you learn are the basics, ethics,
right?
How to sit, how to talk, things to do and things not to do. We get introduced to stories since then. The first time, whether if it's a folk tale or a folklore or something, but things to do, right and wrong, how to behave, what is right and what is wrong, what is black and what is white. We get introduced to that right from day one through stories. We somehow start inculcating stories as a part of our life, as a part of our growing up. We don't see them separately as stories. We see them as a part of our life. When these stories become slightly more deeper, we start believing in them as religion. No religion which is a part of our global self can actually take themselves away from any story, which then puts the character the way they are. Now coming to advertising, I personally believe, again, that every brand, whether the brand has originated from a family, okay, which is like, let's say, McDonald's, okay, or let's say NDH, or the place, which is, let's say, Kentucky, or let's say Tata or Amul, or let's say it comes from a place, which is again like KFC, Kentucky, or Bikaner Wala. So every brand that has been built, okay, if you go deep down, there'll be a story attached to that. If you go to, let's say, Kentucky, there was a WhatsApp message which I had got a couple of years ago, how exactly Kentucky started, which actually is it's an online, which is an indirect way of advertising, where they were trying to promote a story behind a brand. So either you have a brand that originates from a story, or then you have a story that builds a brand. Okay.
Right.
So that is, I personally believe, that is how any brand operates. No brand can stand on its own without being substantiated by a story. Which thankfully I have worked a lot during the pandemic days in terms of the Stay Home Dad. So if you look at the Stay Home Dad as an Instagram _dad as an Instagram page, you will see that it does not have any content or any value or any craft in itself until and unless it's substantiated with many folklores and many stories. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I believe, that every brand, every name, every brand name, any
Yeah.
brand name has got a story. Today, if you take a brand name like Sachin Tendulkar, or if you take Virat Kohli, or if you take Muhammad Ali, or if you take Krishna or Ram or Jesus or any brand name, there will always be a story behind it. Until and unless you have a resonating story that connects with you, you will not have any trust on that particular brand. Yeah. So that
Right.
is my take on stories behind brand building.
Right. I think that was such an interesting perspective, and just kind of layering on top of what Suresh said. I like some of the overarching ideas that I saw was storytelling at its core begins the moment you're born,
Absolutely.
and it goes back to who we are from a primitive perspective. We've been storytelling for humanity since its existence. The other element is that despite the context changing, the media might change. So we might be grappling and it might change the way we produce the story, but storytelling is here to stay. That's a great thing to know, that, if you become a great storyteller, you're never going to not have a job. You're always going to have work.
Absolutely.
So that's a great learning. Now, one of the things that you another things that you outlined is that as a child, society, your parents, they start telling you stories. Now, this is a perfect segue for Hasnain because he's into spirituality, because kind of like as a person, as a creative person, when you're going through this journey, especially if you're a junior designer or you're kind of getting into that senior designer, you're kind of trying to figure out the world, and you're trying to break the own stories that you have had that inhibit you from going to that next level. So I would love to know, in terms of storytelling, how does that play into a creative person's interpersonal life, and how that helps them with their soft skills, and how they can use storytelling to better connect with their prospective clients? I know there's a lot of questions here, but you can take it from wherever you feel most comfortable.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So I would say that there are stories all around us. So we are full of stories. And if you see all our scriptures, be it Mahabharata, be it stories of Bible, be it stories from Quran, be it Mullah Nasruddin Hoja, so we are like we are living in a world of stories. Or tribals who used to tell stories, sit in circles, so
Yep.
Stories have always been there in our system since the time immemorial. What interesting thing I would like to talk about here: why do stories stick, and why their message remains with us the way it remains. Humans don't just memorize, we sugarcoat the memories with emotions. So if any character is able to stimulate me, and if that experience is charging me emotionally, so we also save memories as emotions, and in long run they become our beliefs. So I think the stories that move us, they become our beliefs in long run. So that is why we have these emotive stories. All these scriptures are there to inspire us and all. So if you ask, brings another way of utilizing that capacity that we have, that stories can influence us. So we build like small stories. So as time is progressing, what I think that one change that is coming is that the stories are getting shorter and shorter and leaner, you can say. People don't have much patience, so we are talking about language of thumb stoppers now. So that apart, stories are here to stay, and we relate to stories and we learn from them. We move by stories. So I think storytelling is here to stay until there is marketing, till there is inspiration seeking, till we are educating our next generation. There will be a composite part of the overall influencing medium, you can say. So be it advertising and or our literature or our school books, so they are full of stories only, you can say.
Fantastic. So I have a little observation of my own as well in this regard. And then we're going to segue into a little bit about like how, so, which is, we've kind of covered like the high level of what is storytelling and kind of its origins and how storytelling is here to kind of stay. But one of the things that we can then take is now, how do we translate storytelling? And then how does an individual build their own story? So I'm going to give it to you guys back in a minute, but how somebody can take that format of storytelling and apply it to themselves, not only to attract better clients, better work projects, what should they be doing in terms of their own storytelling and building their own personal brand because of the audience that's watching, let's say from senior designers to junior designers to all kinds of creative artists, illustrators, painters. What is the stories that they need to tell that will attract the kind of work that they want to do? But before I hand it off to you, I have my own observation around storytelling, which is now there is this conception, or I would say misconception, that the attention span is shrinking. Now, that is a double-edged sword, because on one end of that spectrum, we are saying, it's like, I feel like almost the advertising industry is kind of saying it to themselves, is that the audience attention span is shrinking. But at the same time, you have series like Sacred Games and large TV shows, which people binge watch over like a whole week. So again, if the storytelling is fantastic and it's executed well, then people will tune in. And if you listen to, like, for example, podcasts, they're podcasts which are 3 hours long. Some of the top podcasts, they are so long, and people want to get deeply entrenched into, and hear like different perspectives. So I think it's a double-edged sword, because there is this whole conversation around, attention span, is shrinking. And then on the other side of that spectrum, you have great storytelling told over like a series of episodes, which takes you about 2 to 3 days to consume. So I would love to have a little perspective on that, but then translate that into now, how can we take the learnings of storytelling and apply them to, as an individual? So over to you, Suresh.
When I was, it's a bit of a story. Like when I was leaving famous House of Animation, which is something that I was there for 11 years. I set that company up, and people knew my work, and mostly the work used to get associated with Suresh. Oh, this is Suresh's work and stuff like that. And I started a company called Ixorus, Studio Ixorus. Okay, and it's not only a brand that is very difficult for people to pronounce. Even a lot of people in our studio itself couldn't pronounce that name, Ixorus. And the name is from Eeks the dinosaur. Eeks is my nickname from my NID days, and Eeks the dinosaur that stayed on. That's a backstory of Ixorus. Now, my partner is my wife, and she also works as an executive producer. So I was telling her that but this is going to be very tough. If you should, like, people put so many different names, right? For the very simple, some cutting edge, and people name this highlight, white light. It's all very simple words from what people know. Ixorus is something that is a coined word. There's no word like that as a brand. So I was telling that how would people remember the thing? So a very interesting thing that my wife told me is that if your work is well known, people will definitely learn to know how to spell it and pronounce it. it's a very, very interesting thing. And I was pretty nervous, even though I'm from the Design Institute, I know branding and all these exercises. But we went ahead and named it Ixorus. This is way back in 2009. In 2016 or 17, I went to give a talk at an auditorium, and the guy who came to meet me after I got down, he missed the point, and he said, I haven't heard your name, very nice work and all those things he said. So I said, he asked, I missed something, where do you work? So I said, I work for Ixorus. Who, Ixorus? You work for Ixorus? Oh wow, man! He was like he didn't know that Ixorus is my entity. So it was a very pleasant sort of a moment, and for me that the guy knew about Ixorus, and he could pronounce Ixorus, and he knew what Ixorus stood for, and he didn't know me.
Right.
So I think somewhere you detaching your personal story. And imparting, giving all that value to your brand is the way it should be ideally, unless and until you are a fashion designer or something where your name itself is the brand. A lot of people work that way. I think most of the agencies work that way. Ogilvy and all these people they just put their name as Droga, all of them put their names, and they became brand because they didn't want to even lose a little bit of equity by putting another name as an attribute of their work. So here, I feel it always works, and and when it's a brand, so many other people are making films now in our company, and their work and their good work also resonates back into the brand. So, all the independent films that they are making. We also incubate films. We also fund people's projects, student projects and stuff. So it has a much bigger implication as a storytelling entity. And it has become a storytelling company now, recognized like that. So as an artist, you could either make yourself a brand like MF Hussain, or all the people like that, or a designer like Sudarshan Dheer was a designer. He just used to use his name. But I think that's the simplest thing to do. But how Virgin is named, it's not after his name, or Apple is not called Jobs Steve or Jobs or something like that. It's called Apple. I think a brand kind of takes all these stories and more of individuals, and it becomes stronger like that. So I would definitely look at an individual artist or a painter cannot probably, like Van Gogh couldn't have given another brand name, because it is his individual story that worked. So I feel in an entity which is like a company sort of a thing, where you're not just an individual but a group of people coming together and working, then I think this brand story makes a big difference, and individual stories just add more illumination, more shine to that name. I don't know whether I'm on track with the answer, or like last answer I spoke about only the pandemic time films, rather than talking about the rest of the things. So you can always correct me if I'm off track.
No, this is actually really valuable insights. So like my immediate takeaways would be, one is the distinction between using your personal brand versus having a business name. Yeah. Now, how you separate yourself from your business, because let's say if you're a young entrepreneur, you're a young creative person, you're an illustrator, and you want to start your own business, then it's better to put the equity in your business name. But if you are a sole artist and you don't want to get into all, become an agency or a studio, you just want to kind of play up, let's say you're a painter or you're a sculptor, then you play on your own name and build equity around your own name. And then that's the story that you tell people outside. Right. So that's a really great insight. The other layer to that is, don't be afraid to take a fun, eccentric, cheeky, or esoteric name, because what you want to do is, if you say you want to go with a personal brand or you build a business and you build equity around that, the work that you do is going to bring people back to either your business or your personal brand. So the work has to be pushed out to your audience, and then they would kind of come into this funnel where they would see your work, and then they would get introduced to your business brand or yourself. Now, I would love to have Bapi's perspective on some of these points. Or unique experiences that you might have had in terms of how you addressed your own brand, because you did start your own studio. So how did you kind of go about?
I'll take 2 steps back, and I'll absolutely agree with what you and Suresh has said. We are in a time where mediocrity is not celebrated, because you are not only competing amongst yourself, you are competing against a global audience and global creative repertoire. Any piece of work that you put out there, okay, is not only consumed by the target audience that you want to consume, but way wider than that, with much, much more opportunities and competition that they have. If you go even slightly below the mark, both in terms of content or in terms of craft, you have lost the show. It puts a lot of pressure on each and every creative person at that point of time to push themselves, both in terms of crafting, because any category, any genre that you are playing in, there are 10 people or maybe 100 people who are way better than you, who are already there trying to get a slice of that particular piece, where you want to get a little bit of foothold. In order to do that, you have to be way better than what your last piece of work was, both in terms of craft and in terms of content. It's a challenge that you will be always seen and you will always be referred to as your last piece of work, which is the mantra of advertising. When you take your portfolio and you go for your next job interview, the first question they ask is that, okay, what was the last piece of work that's seen the light of the day? And so, which actually we, all of us, in the panel that I see, we all are challenged by the same thing. So one of the things which I personally believe is good for us is that people who have been hiding behind brand names, another thing which I want to reiterate to what Suresh has said is, till date, there has been great work and there has been very mediocre work and there's been poor work, which we would not know who has created it, that particular piece of work. Somebody has created it as a day's job and is hiding behind a brand name. It could be any advertising firm or any production house. Today, as time passes and slowly people are coming out, okay, you cannot hide out from the last piece of work that you have done. If it is Suresh, I know any name. Even if Suresh has given his production house a name as Timbuktu, I would yet go on to him because I know that I'm going to Suresh. I think that has happened more, on what I call as, online advertising, which is social networking advertising, where when I put something on my social network, my social connectivity that I have, I am judged on the basis of that, whether it's a personal work, whether it's a short film that I've made on my own as a fine artist, whether it's a song which I've composed, whether it's a music which I've given, which is a sketch which I have made, which is a portrait which I've made, or which is the film which I've made. I will be judged on the basis of that by the global audience. And I do not have any control on that, okay? Is a benchmark which is getting created by the day. That is my take on today's creative expressions. I don't know whether I
Those
was...
are some...
Suresh, do you agree?
There was a very interesting saying. What you've said reminded me. People used to say that you're not known for your best work, always your last work.
Last work, yeah, absolutely.
You may have won plenty of awards at Cannes and Clio and whatever, but what did you do last?
Yeah.
That's what absolutely counts. He's bang on.
Yeah.
Bang on. Agreed. Totally. You are known for the last work that you. Yep, that is. Can't believe how many times I've heard that. So I think there's some great insights in what you were saying, which is one is that, as a creative individual, as a person who's trying to build their own personal brand and they're going out into the market, your name only has value and equity based on the work that you're doing. And in advertising specifically, it's about the most recent work that you're doing. And because we know for a fact in the agency world, like Ogilvy or Lowe, I'm not trying to take any specific names, but we see like the shiny work that they do, but they do a lot of shit work also that pays the bills and it covers the bottom line. So there is this whole dichotomy of work that is made to win awards and then work that is meant to win business and get sales. And then there's just work that pays the bills. And there's like a whole spectrum there.
Well, can I add another point to that?
Again, please go
I'm
ahead.
reiterating to what Suresh has said.
Yeah.
When you are on your own, it depends on you are on your own at which level in your life. Okay. When you are, let's say, for example, when you are Suresh, you are well acclaimed, people not only, you are highly acclaimed for your work. You are a brand name in it's yourself. When you come out and stand on your own, the kind of resonance that you get, and a college student, when he or she steps out of the nascent period of work and stands on his or her own, the kind of challenges that he or she is going to face, whether she wants to promote herself or the brand name that he or she wants to promote, the challenges will be very different. Yeah. So that I thought is a very important point.
Yeah.
That's a perfect segue for my next question, which is that and I think actually before I go to the next question, I would love to have any final thoughts, anything that you might see differently from Hasnain.
I'm very much in sync with what Suresh and Bapi mentioned. All I would like to add is that in today's world, like I was recently, talking to a person who was very reluctant on, putting his poetry as a blog. So I told him that if you're not comfortable with hashtaggings and putting it on different forum, why don't you write a diary?
Right.
So today I think the audience has become global, as Bapi pointed out, and we have to, once we are putting it on the pedestal, you are putting it on crossroad, you can say. It's not a gallery where people have to come in and appreciate your work. It is open to the world the moment you upload it somewhere. So I think as a brand with your own uniqueness, the creatives need to be more present, in different forums, in different, they should have their own blog, their own, unique website if possible, and have some portfolios online that may help them, showcase their work to the world. So this is the power of new communication medium. That is all I would like to add here, because most of us, the creatives, don't know how to, influence the world with your own work. So I think a bit of understanding of hashtaggings and taggings and meta taggings is very, very important if you are showcasing your work to the world, and it comes handy. Somebody sitting on the other end of the globe can locate you and appreciate your work.
That's a fantastic point. That's a great actually addition, which is so So I think if I was to kind of summarize this piece, which is that one is that, where are you building equity? Is it in your name or is it in the business, right? And then ultimately it's the work that you're doing that's going to draw people in. And it's important now to put yourself out there, to write the blogs, to put out content. So people can, that's your top end of the funnel where people are going to see who you are, what you stand for, what kind of work you do. And you can draw them in, like by having an Instagram page or making TikTok videos. So whatever that outer layer is, you need to put yourself out there. And if you're sort of introverted, at least start with a diary, start somewhere, because the most important thing is till the time people don't see what you're capable of, how will they know, right? They're not imagining some guy named Ram is sitting in his apartment. He's really talented, but how is somebody going to know about that till he doesn't put himself out there, or she? That's a great point. The other layer to that is that you're always kind of subject to your latest work. So now I really like that the bit that Bapi brought out, which is, the different stages of your career mean different things in terms of how you tell your story. So now I would love to segue into what are some practical advice that you would give to somebody coming out of, school, college, and just kind of breaking into the market, to somebody who's sort of gone mid to senior, is not necessarily a director yet or a manager, but somebody who's in their early stage. So one of the practical advice would be, okay, if you're making the work, put it online, put it in front of people's eyes in terms of how they can get better at their craft, what kind of mentors, any piece of advice that you would, let's say if you were to go back and talk to yourself when you were 20 years old, what advice would you give yourself that would be applicable to this segment of audience? So I would let kind of Bapi take it away first. Switch things around a little bit.
So Paul, I believe times have changed, and times have changed radically. When I joined advertising, let's say around, in the Jurassic world, when, people were still doing, when we were yet opening black books and, taking pictures from there. Our entire attitude towards ourselves, towards our profession, towards the knowledge about profession, I remember when I joined Ogilvy as my first job, Ogilvy Tele, there was this poster that was pasted right, where I used to sit, which said, "We sell or else," So that was a mantra, that's the motto that Ogilvy used to believe in. To what I'm seeing now, kids, okay, I would reiterate what I'm trying to say is, there was a time when they used to say that quality comes with experience. I personally believe that today's kids are defying that particular statement. I'm seeing a lot of youngsters in my profession who are way younger than I am, but they are technically way superior than I am, just because their base knowledge is way wider than what I have or I had when I started. So my approach, what the advice also to a youngster, what I'm going to give will be very different from what they believe in. They do not believe in the aesthetics, the principles to how I have brought myself up with. So frankly speaking, I do not give any advice to any kid anymore, because I somehow at the back of my mind know that maybe he knows way a lot more than what I do and can prove it, So yeah, that is one aspect that I have faced in almost, and this is just not about advertising or filmmaking or storytelling or anything else. I have friends who are from the medical field. They are scientists, they are fine artists, they are from different fields. And when we all sit and we discuss, I think all of us have got this particular thought on an unanimity that today's kids, if they have to sell themselves, they are pretty vocal about it. Or if they have to sell a particular project, or if they have to sell a entity or an equity, they're pretty vocal about it. They don't shy away. They don't shy. Like I remember there was a time when I was growing up as a creative person, to say that, oh, I do not understand money, because I belong to the creative genre, creative department, was the fad. I don't think today's kids say that. I think they are very meticulous. They are very knowledgeable. They are very out in the open. And of course, that's something that we all talk about in every session, is that they believe in instant gratification. So our advice, our thinking, our principles will be very different to what today's kids believe in. And their outlook, their approach, their ideas are radical than what we believe in. That's what is my take of what you were talking about. Did I answer, Paul? Or
I think you did. I think you were like very humble about your own experience, and you're giving a lot of credit to youngsters, which is great, which is encouraging. I would also just add one layer, is that the access to information that we had, let's say,
Absolutely.
20 years ago, I started 20 years ago making CD covers and selling them, and burning CDs and so on. That's kind of how I started my graphic design career. But back then, you only had CorelDRAW, and the computers were so slow. Now, access to information, and you can now log on to YouTube and learn Adobe Creative Cloud if you put your mind to it in 6 months. Before, you had to kind of figure it out. And I remember the days when we had to print the portfolio, and only the person you actually physically showed it to knew what you could do. But now you put it online, and now you have access to, and you have websites like Fiverr and Upwork where you can get access to broad spectrum.
Paul, I'm
So
sorry,
that is a
but
really
today,
good point there.
let me just add another point to that. Today, my 10-year-old boys are learning coding. Okay.
Wow.
So imagine by the time they are 15, 16, 17, 18, look at the knowledge base they are getting introduced to,
Yeah.
So I'm saying it is going to be a different animal that we'll be trying to harness at that point of time, saying that just, you have to listen to me because I'm senior to you. But I don't think it's going to work like that.
Right.
I don't think it's going to work like that.
So I think, yep. Suresh, over to you.
No, I think what Bapi said made a lot of sense. I was thinking when you asked, what would you have done? Today's kids have exposure, access, not only to knowledge but to people also, and opportunities. It is much more in the open. I mean, for example, for me to have a work done and get it broadcast so other people can see it, it required a TV channel. So I had to go to a channel and ask them. I mean, like Channel V, I had to go and give an idea to them. They aired it. Then people say, oh, they can do this. I mean, we did Poga for MTV, and Amaron guys, Ogilvy guys said, oh, we can do Amaron like that. So today you can do that on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever you want to, and you will get noticed if you do something radical. And so in terms of I think the way the children of today, I mean, of course, the generation gap is reduced to, I mean, if it was 30 years or 40 years earlier, it is now 5 years. I think every 5 years there is a generation gap. So it's not like, my daughter is 17 years old, and Bapi's kids are 10. There will be a generation gap between them.
Yeah.
It is that quick. The priorities are changing. I mean, like for us, money was very big thing. We had to
absolutely.
We had to make money. We were all from that thing. So our priority was very much revolved around money. These kids are not like that. So they want to do something, and they're very clear when we offer them money, they can turn around and say that, but I need time. I need my time. I need 3 days of my time. They will negotiate with you that, this is something that I want to do on my side. I have my passion projects and other thing going on. I will do this job. So, but you need to give me 3 days so for myself. And, they negotiate like that. And so in terms of, I mean, they have certain ideals and stuff like that. I find that very interesting. They may be, um, maybe not as widely exposed. Like we used to have that information anxiety. We used to like try and get as much information as possible. But they are very, very, of course, these are all Google children. So, when their world is through search engines and, and of course, how Google's algorithms are, they would make you in a well, because you search say certain things, they will only show you results in that sort of interest. They will not show you things that are of not your interest. I mean, your desktop or your Facebook page or all those, it'll be very different from mine, depending on what they will only give you. They'll feed you what you like only. So that way, I feel their vision might be slightly, uh, you can say, focused or limited, in that sense. That this is they want to specialize very quickly. We were actually not sure even now what we should be doing. So we keep exploring and we keep expanding our horizon. That is something that I don't know whether these kids would take it as something that they should do. This is something that I feel, and I keep telling my daughter also that, why don't you look at that, why don't you look at this, because you don't need to be like so focused onto that. But many kids, like when they're 15 and 16, they know exactly what they want to do, and they pretty much know how to get there also. I mean, it is very different from the way we grew up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Only thing is, I mean, just half an hour before I was giving another talk on compassion in design. How important is compassion, which is so largely getting depleted, from designers don't have compassion, and I feel that technology doesn't have compassion to many things, to environment, to old people. Your banking and other things I was talking about. I think this is the only value that and I find a lot of children compassionate to animals. They are compassionate to environment, which we were not. In their times, we were not concerned about environment as much as they are today. I mean, of course, it's going to hit them more than us. So they probably are. So I see a very different perspective in them. So I cannot really say that, we all wanted to make a mark. We all wanted to earn well. All these were our priorities. That is not the same priority with them. So I don't know whether the ambitions are similar, like that. They want to do great work. My tip to anyone would be to, like, really, if you do great work, that is what ultimately counts. There was one guy, one of the senior guys in my company. He's still working with me. He's created a brand, and he started uploading some work there. And I said, what why are you doing this? You have opportunities in my company. You do your work, put your name as a director or whatever, and you can create a name for yourself. No, I was thinking in a year or something, I'm planning to start that company. So I was thinking, I said, you're doing half-baked, half-hearted work because you want to just keep doing something in that brand that you are thinking it's going to be your transition from Ixoros to that company. You are doing shit work in my company, and you're not doing great work there. I mean, you're instead of that, if you focus on doing great work in my company, take that individual credibility or all to yourself, and focus. It's much better than trying to do these two dance. So. Yeah, that's my advice to both the levels. There are great work in whichever capacity you do, earnest, honest work. That is what counts ultimately, and opportunities will chase you.
Right. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Bapi.
Suresh, I think what you did, you just reiterated what I was trying to say in much better words.
Oh.
And that is that you are talking to a generation that wants instant gratification to the idea.
Yeah.
What we are trying to teach them is that hold on to your horses, learn the craft,
Yeah.
and you might become better.
Yeah.
They don't have the patience for that. If they have an idea, they want to encash it today. And as you rightly said, they do not negotiate on money because they think that they deserve it and they're going to get it.
Yeah.
What they negotiated is their life.
Yeah. Time.
When we were growing up, we never negotiated about our lives. We always negotiated about money.
Yeah.
They take money for granted. They negotiate life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a great thing.
This is a great thing.
Which is a great thing. Yeah.
The very, very interesting perspectives here. I don't know if we've lost Hasnain, if he's still here. His camera is gone. But what I would say is that a couple of things, housekeeping. One is that we are sitting at 10, we've already gone 14 minutes above. So if we can all be here for the next 10 minutes, we can help kind of summarize and conclude the session. So one of the key learnings from here is that one is that, the generation now is hungry for success early, and they have more exposure, not only in terms of learning and tools, but in terms of, what they want in life, or at least, how they want to basically ration their time. And they're willing to negotiate that. Okay, so I think we've completely lost Hasnain. So no worries. So that was some really great learning, but I think there's a separate, talk that comes out of this one, which is as creative leaders, how do we channel all that energy, in terms of, I think a great example that Suresh outlined was that, he has somebody who's super talented, but they already have their eye on kind of doing their own thing. But how do you retain talent? I think that's another talk for another day, maybe.
Yeah.
For sure. So here's what I would say is that if we were to kind of conclude, your final thoughts and pieces of advice that you would give youngsters, who are hungry for success, it's all about the work, is where should they focus their energy on, and how is patience going to be helpful? And what kind of mentors maybe they should seek out? Or are there any practical things that they can do, like courses they can take, books they can read, that can help them improve their craft? So, Suresh, if you want to go first, I will totally hand it off to you to conclude any final thoughts.
I think perseverance is extremely important. To be at it till you know that this is something that you want to do or not. I think very, very important is which I don't think it's anymore something that needs to be taught to the young minds, because you need to do what you love. There is no point in doing something that you don't love as your career option. There is absolutely no point in doing that. If you can find that love, that is, till then you need to experiment, explore. You keep exploring till you find that, okay, this is what I want to lock, and this is what I love to do all 24 hours. When we work on a film, even if we had to work 24 hours, we don't say, oh shit, so much hard work in our work. We never complain about it. It's fun. And I think that is, people have to find their zones. And for that, whatever it takes to explore, to find that pure love of what they really want as a final destination. I mean, I'm not saying stop it at there, you can continue, but that should be the quest, rather than, I'm sure there are different kind of kids who some parents might be telling them to do this, somebody might be influenced by somebody who's doing great in some other profession. So, you kind of chase that, you imitate and you emulate others. So all those things are there, but, ultimately you need to find out where your love is. And I think if you can convert that into a career option, I think that should be the quest.
Wow. Fantastic. Bapi, actually, before I hand it off to Bapi, Hasnain, so we're basically, we've gone kind of over time. So we're just kind of summarizing and concluding. So I would love for you to, I'm going to give it to you right after Bapi, is to just kind of conclude any final thoughts, pieces of advice, practical things, what a person coming into this creative space in the market, what are the things that they can do? So I think Suresh kind of outlined some really good points. For example, be passionate about that thing, have perseverance. So those are some really great takeaways. Now I'm going to hand it over to Bapi first. And in the meantime, Hasnain, you can kind of think about what you would want to leave off. Any final thoughts, words of wisdom, some sauce.
Sure.
So over to Bapi.
I'll go back to the reason why we are into a discussion. We are discussing storytelling. Now, how can you tell a story to a generation who do not have the patience to listen to a story? Because each one of them do not believe in any other story but in themselves. They think that they can write a story with their life way better than the stories that they're listening to. Each and every story, any example that you give. Secondly, I believe that our knowledge base to suffice and to substantiate those stories always falls short. So they try and get those answers that they do not get from us, from social network. So their trust on social network is at times more than what they have on us. So on a session of storytelling, I wanna conclude by saying that as long as we, the seniors, people who think that they are more experienced than the younger generation, learn and evolve how to narrate our stories in a much more, what they call as a new norm, the new normal way, we will always lose out our target audience. It is for us now to reinvent our ways of brand building, of storytelling, in order to captivate the audience, which has got their life is like a remote in their hand, which they keep skipping every second. So in order to keep their attention towards us, we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to reinvent our ways, methods, different ways of using words, maybe of narrating a story. The same old content in a different new packaging is the only mantra that I foresee for us to believe and continue the art of storytelling.
Fantastic. I love the introspective, self-aware point of view. That's fantastic. I think it's not only just about the young talent, but it's also about us and how we communicate with them. That's a brilliant, brilliant insight. Over to Hasnain for final words, concluding thoughts.
Okay. So, Paul, I would like to share a Sufi saying, which goes like, don't impose your thoughts on your kids. They are born for a different time. So most of us, with our own belief systems, what is a belief? Belief is something that we bring from past. It's consolidated memory only. That we know that this has been working for us. It will work for the next generation also. But they are living in a different times. So yes, but the way I see them, pulled in so many directions, as a spiritual coach, what I have noticed that the best gift that humans have is the gift of awareness, the ability to focus on things. So I think if our focus is fragmented, we will not be able to access best of our potential in any case. So my advice to the younger artists and younger generation would be that have some patience. Good things do take time. So hone your skills, be passionate about your work, and you are exposed to, I would say rather overexposed to the content now. When we are tackling a tsunami of content, trying to drown us today. So somewhere, like, I feel that too much of a good thing is also bad. such is the case of social media and everything, because it is distracting you and you are not able to focus on thing, and the results don't show up the way you expect them to come. So my advice will be to have some patience and persevere, be passionate about your your work, and you will definitely succeed. You are living in a different time, and I leave it totally up to you to figure out like how you are going to handle. I will not be able to advise you on something that I have not seen in my growing years rather. So yes, have some patience is what I would like to leave as a last word for the younger generation.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna summarize kind of the high level key points that we talked about. One, but before I do that, I want to thank the amazing panel for sharing their insights, taking out their time to join us for WLOC, world's largest online creativity event. For sharing their insights, bringing their words of wisdom, and even at times becoming self-aware and being introspective about what it means to be a creative leader and how we need to help with younger talent. So thank you very much for joining us today. I've actually personally learned a lot and had a really good perspective on different pieces. So thank you very much. And so I would summarize the key points that I kind of, if I was to take the columns of the conversation, the scaffolding, which would be that, storytelling has existed since humanity has existed. It's very primitive. Stories shape who we are and the world around us, right? Second is, build equity in your brand through the work that you do. Bring people in through your work. Spend time on your craft. Be patient. Have perseverance. And even though you do know what you want, don't let it become ego. Be confident, but don't let it become about your ego. So that's a really good point. And that ties into that patience element, is that be patient about your craft, about your own journey, because it's a beautiful journey. Because I think one thing when I also kind of look back and I heard all of these different perspectives was that when I look back is that if I just spent more time on my craft and not worry too much about how the dots are going to connect, I think these are words of wisdom. I think Steve Jobs said that at this point, you might not see the dots connect, but all the little efforts that you're putting in are going to connect later. So all these different things that we've talked about kind of cover those different dots that are going to connect later. So I say that thank you for listening. And if you have any other specific questions to the audience, please put them in the chat and we'll be happy to address them. Thank you very much. This was a great and fun talk to be part of. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Paul.
Lovely. And
Thank you, guys.
Rahul Johri says hi to both of you. Happy and Paul.
As Paul was talking about the connecting dot, where every dot has got Rahul's name written on it.
Yeah. I told him. The panel discussion is going on, and everybody seems to.
It's a small world, Suresh. I remember, I was with Mudra, and you had come to give a stop motion presentation for, I think after doing a Godrej stop motion work with Pranav. So I was in the room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's such a small world, huh?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Suresh, you have made so many memorable films that as an advertising person, when I was in advertising and in brand building, it was always an inspiration. As you gave an example of, I yet remember my Amaron last long, really long. Ting tong, ting tong. Amazing. Thank you for all that great work, Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bapi. Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Bye. Pleasure. Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.